Hey guys, even by my standards, this is an unusually casual broadcast. I'm just on you now. I'm eating strawberries. I just got today. This is really the start of strawberry season here in Kunming, the changing the season. So for us, that's winter. These are beautiful, brilliantly red strawberries. And I'm just sitting and kicking it with whoever happens to be online. I'm having a dinner of nothing but strawberries and soy milk before I go back to the gym. I already went to the gym once today, but I want to go back. I want to lift heavy this evening. So I'm hoping the strawberries... Hoping this is my pre-workout meal. We'll see how that goes. Maybe it'll go horribly wrong. Maybe I'll be barfing up strawberries after lifting 100 kilograms. But hey, life's a contact sport, people. Play to win. Look, I had a question during my last broadcast that I didn't get to answer. And for once, I'm holding strawberries instead of holding the microphone. I had a question about what I felt the Humane Party was doing wrong. So the Humane Party, if you haven't heard of it, is a party that very recently came to prominence in the United States of America, in as much as they've achieved any prominence or notoriety. And they do also refer to themselves sometimes as the Vegan Party, because they do require all of their members to be vegan. So in a very obvious sense, they are a vegan party. They are a party entirely... I shouldn't say all. Not that all of their supporters, but all of their candidates. Anyone to be a party member, official, or candidate has to be vegan. So they're obviously repping the vegan cause to a significant extent. And I commented in passing yesterday when I got asked, I said, "Well, look, I don't really want to get into it, but I think they're approaching the issue 180 degrees wrong. They've got the cart before the horse. They've got things exactly backwards, however you want to put it." And the guy who asked me the question said, "Oh, that's a really interesting answer. I want to hear more." And yesterday I didn't really want to get into it. I had other things to do and other things to talk about, so I didn't say anything further at the time. Look, building constituency. What does it mean to you? Building credibility. What does it mean to you? You got to be somebody somewhere before you can be anybody everywhere. You can build constituency by doing very humble work at City Hall. You can build constituency by owning the corner store in a small town. You know, you don't need to be famous. You don't need to be a Donald Trump-like figure to run for president of the United States, but it helps. It helps to be a former reality TV star, etc., etc. Many years ago, when I was advising the Green Party of Canada on what they should do to build credibility and build constituency. And this was back when the internet was relatively weak medium. I was really saying to them, you need to have an on-paper magazine that shows that you are au courant, that you're up to date with, you're in the know about what's going on in the recent scientific breakthroughs. Now today on the internet, the internet existed then, but it was in a more crude, nascent state. I'm talking about the kind of information that Vegan Gains so casually shows. He knows that he's sharp on. He's aware of what's going on in peer-reviewed literature on the most recent health breakthroughs. You need to have a magazine that shows you're aware of recent protests, recent legal challenges in Europe, in New Zealand. So, whether it's pertaining to animal rights or other ecological rights, ecological legal battles, ecological disasters, you need to have a magazine that shows you have a staff of people with names and faces who know what's up, who knows what's going on. And this is totally alien to them because, keeping it all the way real, in case you think I'm not already keeping it all the way real on this channel, most of those people in the Green Party of Canada at that time, they were basically communists. They were ex-communists or crypto-communists. And they felt that their legitimacy didn't come from being well-informed or up-to-date. In the way that, again, Vegan Gains just seems up-to-date and well-informed. He checks the articles, he tells you about the science, this kind of thing. They felt that their legitimacy came from adherence to a simple ideological doctrine and insisting that their doctrine was right and that they were passionate about it and anyone who questioned them was wrong. Because that's the way communism works. Especially that's the way communism works in a country like Canada. Obviously, communism is somewhat different if you're from Estonia. But in Canada, the United States, or England, that really is the way communists approach legitimacy in an electoral forum. They think that a simple ideological statement of their superiority, of why they're right and the other people are wrong, that's how you build your credibility. And it's not. You would be better off building your credibility. I can use examples that I mentioned in other videos through small community struggles. A struggle at one prison to improve prison conditions. A struggle at one sewage treatment plant to make the water drinkable or safe to swim in one river. Like in Canada, we have a lot of these examples. A struggle at one, Indian reservation or First Nations reservation, whatever you want to say, out in the remote countryside where you struggle and say, look, the government has poisoned these people's drinking water. Drinking water ought to be up to these standards. Environmental regulations ought to be up to these standards. Or you pick an example, we have a lot of these in Canada too, where the government had sold out its old standards. There were standards that were supposed to be enforced for a pulp and paper company, for some for-profit corporation, but the government was throwing those standards aside because, the business makes money, whatever the situation is. Any of those little struggles, just one of them, build constituency, build credibility, and show that you have currency, that you're current, that you're into what's going on now. So again, 15 years ago, I was talking about that being a magazine. Still today, like within Canada, if we're talking about Canada, publishing a magazine on paper and sending it to your patrons, sending it to people who donate money to you still is worthwhile because they're giving you money. So they ought to have something they can touch and feel. If you send them flowers in the mail, that's great too. But obviously that content today, the internet and YouTube, obviously there are other platforms today that would really reshape that advice. That was the kind of advice I was giving to the Green Party because I was saying to them, don't think of this as a struggle every 4 years. In Canada, it can be 5 years. Our elections schedule is actually much more flexible. But anyway, whether you're talking about 4 years, 5 years, this is not a struggle that's linked to the election cycle. You're talking about a struggle over 50 years, where you go from being a joke, a small and despised minority party, to being respected and esteemed. And one of the ways you can do that, again, just coming back to vegan gains, one of the ways you can do that is actually through science. Science is open to everybody. And, it's a meritocracy in some ways. Your donors, your supporters will appreciate the hell out of it if you took the time to do, again, what Vegan Gains does, what a lot of other people do, and you say, hey, look, there's this controversy. Maybe the controversy is about whether or not it's healthy to eat eggs. But maybe the controversy is about whether or not it's safe to drink the water in Lake Ontario. It could be any lake, obviously. I'm just mentioning this as one example. We say, some people think the water is not safe to drink. Some people think this. Let's sit down and look at the science. You took the time to do that. You published that article. People from across the political spectrum will respect you. You're building constituency, you're building credibility, you're building trust in a way that communists never do, that communists never think of, because one of the fundamental tenets of communism is class struggle. And class struggle is not class education. Class struggle is not class debate. Class struggle is not, class science research, okay? Class struggle is class war. Just like I wrote about in my essay on Nicolas Gonamur, class war means the commies go to the prison, break the criminals out of the prison, recruit them into their army, start going house to house, piratically looting what the bourgeoisie and the middle class have, murdering people, lynching people, persecuting people. It's brutal. It's ugly. And I'm sick to death of hearing people make excuses for communism who never took the time to read any one historical example of what communism really means or even where the word comes from. I digress. Okay? So, look, this example I've drawn. So obviously the question that was asked to me was about the Humane Party of the United States, which currently is a joke, and I don't even mean that as an insult. When the Green Party first started, the Green Party was a joke. In general, if you have a small political party with no money and no influence and no respect, etc., of course when you start off you're going to be a joke. Now as it happens also, the particular people in that party are not the most rational or easy to respect. They have some crackpot views. That's always a question. How do you organize a party so that the crackpots are not at the center, so they're at the fringes, so you have a constitution that defines what you're about? But frankly, even the type of discourse I've been describing now, let's say in a magazine where you're also putting that information on the internet, let's say through YouTube videos, but you have edited articles with standards, even just by engaging in that discourse, you don't just win the respect of your audience, you raise the whole moral tone within your party, right? Again, something communists fail to do. When you have that standard, let's just say the same standard Vegan Gains has, where he doesn't just rant about how eggs are bad for you. He actually digs up the science and shows you this is why nobody should eat eggs. Whatever. You use an example. And again, this is not an extremely high standard. This is an attainable standard. I do think that in itself sets a kind of bar where, okay, so now the people who believe in crazy conspiracy theories about HIV/AIDS, or the people who believe in crazy conspiracy theories about vaccines or something, they realize, whoa, if we want to join this party, we have to live up to these standards. We have to produce our own content that, will pass this editorial bar, right? Then the point is, of course, a new party, especially one that's powerless, moneyless, etc. Of course, when you start off, you're a joke. What is the path, step by step, to gaining that respect, to building that constituency? It's not starting off by running for the presidency. It's not. That's the last step. In so many ways, you could build a party, you can build a movement, as I say, with small struggles for one prison, for one power plant, for one sewage treatment scandal, and one article at a time. One article about eggs or milk or dairy or the politics of veganism or the ethics of how animals are hunted and killed in Canada for the fur industry. Anything. Any of these issues. You can build credibility this way. Running for the president, it's not going to be your first step. At best, it's going to seem like a crass publicity stunt, which in many ways it is. Now in Canada, if I were involved with the Green Party, let's keep it all the way, and the Green Party asked me to run for Prime Minister of Canada, or to run for office, period, I'd think about it. I'd think about it seriously, but again, I would have exactly this kind of critical view, where I'd say, well, what you're talking about really is nothing but a publicity stunt, because you didn't build up, that kind of constituency, that kind of credibility. And another thing to remember here, so 12 minutes into this video, I've only been talking about domestic issues, and I've only really been talking about ecological and ethical issues. The other problem with running for President of the United States, or a similar position, Prime Minister of Canada, Prime Minister of England, is that maybe 60% of the discourse, minimum 60%, is about foreign policy. So the Green Party of Canada just tore itself apart, just disintegrated, debating what their position is on Israel. So the Israel-Palestine conflict, whatever you want to say, right? Nobody outside of the Green Party of Canada gives a fuck what the Green Party of Canada has to say about the Israel-Palestine conflict. It's neither good nor bad. It's spurious. It's irrelevant, right? But this is one of the fundamental ways in which running for President of the United States or competing in federal politics in Canada is just very poorly matched with veganism and ecology. Some vegans are going to be Zionists. I'm not one. I'm not a Zionist. Some vegans are going to be pro-Palestinian. And I think the vast majority are going to be lukewarm on the issue or indifferent to it, are going to say, why the hell are we debating this at a conference that's supposed to be about veganism and ecology? They just don't want it on the menu, right? So by choosing to put yourself in that position, by taking that route, by playing that lane, you're going to debate the Iraq war. What do you think? Do you think veganism has a unique and powerful insight into the Iraq war? I don't. Into ISIS, into international trade relations, into currently the triangular relationship between Australia, India, and Japan. Very interesting in geopolitics. What is Canada's role in that? Or what is Donald Trump's position on the strategic partnership between Australia, Japan, and India? That's real hard foreign policy. That's what political science is made of. We don't want to be internally divided over those issues, and we also don't want to sell ourselves. We don't want to present ourselves to the public, to our donors, or in our magazine. If just before I was describing a magazine, we don't want to take up pages with that. We don't want the photo on the cover of our magazine is not going to be a woman holding a baby in Iraq with bombs falling and the city on fire. That's a different magazine, right? Maybe I'd like to read that magazine also. I'm into politics, what have you. So, in so many ways, the approach to the Humane Party is dead wrong. Now, I haven't even bothered here to critique the particular ideas, some of which are crackpot, that came out of the Humane Party. As you've already heard, I have experience across the board, right? So, I have experience with crazy communists, a lot of just crazy left-wing extremists in Canadian politics. Obviously, the crazy right-wing is probably even worse. Take your pick. I don't think that's special. I don't think that's unique. I think there are very hard questions you have to face up to procedurally about how you're going to effectively marginalize and silence those people within your own party. Some aspects of what political parties do are democratic, and some are not. When I was asked at a Green Party plenum, so a formal Democratic Green Party event, and I was talking about having this magazine, somebody asked me, what's the difference between a magazine and a message board? Because we already have a message board. The Green Party had a shitty message board, people just posting whatever was on their mind. You know what my answer was? Excellence. Editorial process. There's nothing democratic about that, right? Somebody has to decide either, yes, this article is good enough to be printed in the magazine. No, it's not. Or this article could be good enough, but we need to improve it. Either we give it back to the author and ask for revisions, or we ask for the author's permission to have another author fact check it and correct it, make some changes. That doesn't happen in a message board. In a message board, just like the comments below this video on YouTube, anyone can write any garbage, right? So it's not democratic. One person is the editor, and one person is the author, and another person is the reader. Total inequality. But we can, through those non-democratic aspects, we can raise the tenor and quality and tone of the whole discourse. And we can prove to ourselves, to our membership, to the outside world, that we have credibility, we have currency, we are current, we're up to date. We're not talking about something that happened in 1975. We're not talking about something that happened in 1917. We're not stuck on, the ghosts of the past. We're up to date on what's going on in ecological politics or animal rights or any of these issues in New Zealand, in Europe, around the world. And we know about cases, again, if you're Canadian, we know about this small town in Canada where there was a disaster because the garbage dump had a leak and toxic fluid from the garbage dump got into the river. We know about that. We care about that. Vote for us. Donate to us. Give us your money. And, again, if you're in America, it's a small town in America. If you're in Australia, it's small. Obviously, you can apply this Jones situation. But that's not easy to deal with. It's not easy to manage. Because I've been talking about this form of basically facing up to the elitist aspects of how those institutions run. But what if the person who's the editor of the magazine is themselves a crackpot? What if the person who's the editor of the magazine is Freely the Banana Girl? Just one bad person gets into that position and you can't replace them quickly. And your whole movement is destroyed. And you don't have control over it because democratically the donor's money has to go to that institution or that editors. You can't just close down the magazine and start a new one. That happens a lot in politics, right? Okay. So that's it, man. That's enough for this video. 18 minutes solid. Brass tacks politics. I got to get back to eating these strawberries. When I look at the Humane Party, I think they have it 180 degrees the wrong way around. And they're repeating a lot of the mistakes that the Green Party made in its early days. A lot of small party movements make those mistakes. I do think that in general, conservatives have a huge advantage over communists, to be blunt, over the far left, simply because conservatives are very much influenced by the way churches are organized. A typical American Protestant church knows how to fasten onto a specific issue like that, whether it's the garbage dump or the prison or the school, and they know how to have a picnic and a fundraiser and have people come to a lecture, and they have people singing at the lecture. It's not too boring. They have the choir or whatever. They have someone with a guitar. They know how to make that stuff happen. They know how to build constituency. in a community. They know how to build credibility. They know how to test how much trust they've got. They know how to collect donations, but not to abuse that trust. There's actually a lot, shall we say, schematically, that the right wing learns from how small churches operate. So we're really talking about small Protestant churches, not the Catholic Church, not a centralized organization like the Catholic Church. Picnics and fundraisers and going out and shaking people's hands and looking them in the eye, all that stuff. In many ways, the right wing tends to have a very useful political education provided to them by their religious foundations. And the left wing isn't just lacking that. They tend to be in many ways echoing old myths that were set up by communists and, socialists on the extreme left. That all you need to do is stand up with a megaphone and shout something shrill and extreme enough, and the working man is supposed to rise up and follow you just because you're right and you say you're right. And neither of those are democratic paradigms for politics. Churches are not democratic. Labor unions are not democratic. But, communist revolutionaries are not democratic. But I do think it's much easier to adapt the institutional attitudes that people have from the church picnic to small party politics, to ecological politics, to vegan politics. It's much easier to adapt one to the other in a useful way than it is to adapt the attitudes you encounter on the far left wing. Hit me up.